This episode is brought to you by the outstanding shows of the You Run Podcast Network. From TV to true crime and everything in between, the network is your home of entertainment. So don't delay. Join in with the fun at yourunpodcast.com today.
No quotes, nothing witty from me today. I just want to get this done and gone.
I know, same. And I normally am not like that. I'm typically like, oh, whatever, Scott. But I'm same. I'm just like, this case is so negative.
Yeah, this case
Bad.
sucks. Be nicer with your voting, guys. Yeah, but much
Yeah.
nicer to us, please. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Heather's raging, old news she screams. The newer cases are all that she dreams. We dive into cases both weird and grim, from Zodiac ciphers to Tiger King's whim. We're You Run Podcast, the oddball pair. We're pretty damn good to be fair. You Run Podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manson's madness to Tupac's case, we're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a weekend and nod. You Run Podcast, approved by God. Probably not.
Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Scott.
And I'm Heather.
And this is the You Run Podcast True Crime, the show where you pick the cases that we discuss and then get a chance to chime in as well. You can chime in really easily. Send us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com, or record us a voicemail. It's really that simple.
Mhm.
You can do that on X and Instagram. Go to send a DM, push and record. And there is so many people who listen to this show and so few that call in. And I don't know if
I
that's
know.
because it's true crime related and it's harder to make witty jokes and be funny. But you don't need to be witty and funny. You can just call in and go, that case was really hard, or this is my opinion on a case. Like, call us. We like to hear from you. And
Yeah.
we don't. And it's sad. So call us. Call the show. Do it now.
Do it like Blondie. Call me.
Yeah. Carry that on. I need a longer sound bite of that.
Well, I don't even know all the words to it, so I just like fucked up that little bit for myself because I'm like, call me. Dun, dun. See, I know the tune, but I can't get the words. I'm not a Blondie fan, honestly.
I'm not, to be fair. Look, we recorded the first part of this a couple of weeks ago,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I went fully with the intent of diving deep into it the day after that recording. I
Mhm.
read about 3 articles and went, nah, fuck this. I researched this again yesterday and went back into this back end of the case.
It's so
Oh,
gross.
man.
It's just so like it's all true crime is depressing. We're not validating anything. I think there's certain cases that are, if you can even say less depressing, less depresso. This one is just, when we get into it, the whole thing of it happening and how long it happened,
Yeah.
you're like, did anybody it's just, to me, I understand it was in a different decade. I get that, but it's so hard to think that these sick fucks got away with this stuff and they lived where they could be heard and caught very easy. I'm nosy as fuck. If
Me too.
I hear something at my neighbor's, right? If you hear screaming, do you think you're not going to say anything or like check?
Yeah, like that's the
just
thing.
saying.
Like we've got neighbours. We
Ugh.
live in a semi-detached house, so we've got houses attached to both sides of us.
Yeah.
Now, if I hear my neighbour screaming at their kids, do I do something straight away? Probably
Yeah,
not. Like we
not,
shout
it's not
at 'em.
bad.
No, there are times you shout at your kids and you send them to their room or you tell them off for
Yeah.
doing stuff like that. Happens. But if I heard on a consistent basis, like loud bangs, loud thumps, screaming, shouting, children
Crying, like,
crying, like I would
mhm,
report that to somebody, if not go and knock the door myself and go, is
for
everything
sure.
okay? Like,
Yeah.
well, if you joined us last time, you will know this is the second part of our Fred and Rose West case. If you didn't join us last time, why are you here? Like, you are in the wrong place. You need to stop this one, go back an episode and listen to that episode first, because otherwise this one I don't know. It's doing like this episode without the other one is kind of like having pudding before you have your main meal. Like there's an order things
Yeah.
going. Like don't mess things up. Saying that, like we're not your parents. Like we can't impose rules on you. If you want to listen to this episode first and then go back and listen to the first one,
Some people like to have dessert first. Maybe you want your appetizers last. It's traditionally you eat them first before your entree. The bottom line is just listen to us, but you do need to listen to part one so that it coincides with this part, because you're just
Yeah.
going to hear the end of it and then you're going to, I mean, it would still make sense, but you might hear part one and be like, I don't know if I want to listen to part two, but please
Exactly.
do, because it's bad.
Previously we discussed both Fred and Rose's childhoods, which were equally shit. Like it doesn't justify what
Yes.
they've done, but they had shit childhoods. We looked at some of the murders of, well, we looked at all of the murders of Fred before he met Rose.
Mhm.
We then looked at some of the murders they'd done together and a murder that Rose done on her own. We then looked into their depraved lifestyle of prostitution, torture, rape, incest, all those wonderful things that made me call an end to it last time. I'm like, this is the point we're done. This time, as much as it boggles my mind to say it, it's worse. Like if you listen to the last episode, you went, "Oh, do you know what? This is pretty heavy. This is like this episode is
Yeah.
worse in every single sense of the word. It's infinitely 10 times harder than the last one. This covers sexual assaults, domestic violence,
Mhm.
murder of their own child. We're also going to talk about the failings of social services here in the UK, and
Yeah.
because they're like this, everything that happened would have been so easily stopped at so many different points in time, but people like didn't care or didn't want to get involved, and it really annoyed me.
Yeah, it's
Like,
kind of mind blowing. I don't get it. Like I can understand people's mindset of thinking, well, it's not my business, I won't get involved. But like my thing is there is a stipulation to that. Like when you hear there's children involved, especially, that seems like something you need to stick your nose in that business. Be Pinocchio, okay, bitch. Like you
Yeah.
gotta do what you gotta do, because the child typically is not old enough to validate themselves, and they cannot help themselves usually. It doesn't matter. Just like be nosy. Being nosy helps a lot of people if they know how to do it right.
Yeah, yeah, it really, really does. I'm going to give a warning on this one. If anything we've just described or anything you heard on the last episode you found
Yeah.
upsetting or distressed you, go into this with a little bit of caution, because this is very much the same, just stepped up a bit.
Yep.
We're going to kick things off with the beautiful domestic violence filled home that they had. So last time we established Fred is bound to fits of rage, and Rose took pleasure in torturing and watching others
Yeah.
suffer, which that's kind of just the surface level, but that doesn't build a very good environment for children.
No.
The poor kids receive regular beatings from both Fred and Rose. The majority of the abuse came from Rose, which I find so hard to wrap my head around. Like, Fred was not the father to all of these children, so some of these children were from Rose's clients. So I don't justify it, but I understand that he doesn't have that maternal bond necessarily. But these are her children that she's given birth to, and she beats them and hurts them. And that to me is, I can't wrap my head around how you could hurt your own child. It blows my mind every time I try to process that. My brain goes, nope.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And coming from a mother's perspective, because I have children, and I find it hard to believe that as a mother, yes, you carry these babies in your body, you deal with all the stuff at being pregnant now, as I know, it's not fun. And how you could put hurt on a child, like I don't get it either. I do understand being frustrated.
Yeah,
We all
that's
have
part of being
intrusive thoughts. Like intrusive thoughts are not dangerous. Like we all think like, "Oh my god, shut up," or something like that. But that doesn't make you a bad parent. But I think that with Rose, a lot of this had to do with control. She wanted to control, and that's probably why Fred did not step in so much with that aspect of it, because even though he had control issues too, obviously, he was just much more on the other end of it, of being like controlling the murder output, if that makes sense. That might sound kind of
yeah,
weird, but like Rose was like, these are my kids. And sometimes there's that entitlement to harm because they're her kids. So she can harm them if she wants.
yeah, and it's just
It's
so
fucked
wrong.
up. I know it sounds fucked up, but that's literally what I feel like in her mind. It's sort of what it was like. Like,
Yeah, and
whatever.
like the beatings were for various things. Sometimes they were chore related, like a kid wouldn't clean
So
something right,
stupid.
or it took them
Hmm.
too long to do a task. Other times, though, it was just purely because Rose wanted to see them suffer.
Yeah, she's a sadist, just like
Yeah,
Fred was. Like you know that already. She was a sexual sadist, and then just a sadist in general. I think she loved seeing pain.
yeah,
Again, it's hard to wrap your head around to think that you could have an infant or a toddler or a small child or a teenager, any age group, and that you could purposefully inflict pain on them, mentally, physically, verbally, however. But like to hurt them, and then that makes you feel good.
yeah. It's so awful.
It's
Um,
disgusting.
there were a few children who run away from this home, and I get it. I understand why, and I wish they'd
Yeah.
run away and stayed away. Um, when this happened, the police would return them home. So the West would report them missing. The police would find them, bring them home.
Hmm.
They would then receive savage beatings. Both Fred and Rose had an agreement that they would never mark their hands or their face because they were the only things that couldn't be covered and would bring outside
Yeah.
attention into what was going on in the home. And
Uh-huh.
that makes it worse because not only are you beating your child, but you're doing it in a organized, methodical way that you're not going to
Hmm.
get in trouble.
It's it's premeditated, and there it's not just their case. Any cases of abuse that you hear about like that, a lot of the times the abusers will not hit the victims in their face or like here lower arms or anything. Like it'll all be like neck down, stomach, back because they can be covered.
Yeah.
It's methodical. It's insane, but that's what they do because then they're less likely to get caught.
Yeah. I read so many accounts of the beatings that took
Hmm.
place in this house. I don't want to go through all of them because
No.
honestly, it's an episode all on its own.
Yeah.
But there's something that I need to discuss because I'll never get this mental image out of my head unless I talk
Mhm.
about it. So,
Mhm.
picture the scene. Picture this in your house, okay? So you've gone in the kitchen, you're Rose West. You've gone in the kitchen, you're looking for a kitchen utensil, and it is missing. She then
Mhm.
interrogates the children to find out who it was. Now, she comes to the conclusion that it was May, one of her younger daughters, who took this utensil. Um, what she then does is beyond heinous. So she holds May still and she picks up a kitchen knife. I'm going to use the term that the police report used.
Mhm.
She inflicted light knife wounds across her daughter's chest and rib cage. So what
Yeah.
that means is that she broke the skin but didn't
She
go
poked
deep
her.
enough.
She was poking at her, basically, is another term for you guys
Yeah.
to envision that.
Um, now, as if that wasn't bad enough, this happened while the other children were there and they
Yeah.
begged and pleaded for her to stop because they were worried she was going to kill their sister.
Mhm.
I don't understand how you could do this to another person, full stop. But then to do it to
Yeah.
your own child while your other children are crying and screaming at you to stop is just about the most horrific scenario that I could ever imagine in my head. That's like out of a horror movie awful.
It's like worse because it's real life. In like a horror movie, you expect it, right?
Yeah,
And even in horror movies, Scott, I don't even know if I've seen quite anything as heinous.
no, I
You see
really
people being
haven't.
tortured in a horror movie, and you look at it, and you always, as a horror fan, which rest in peace to Tony Todd, by the way, I'm going to throw that in there. That's made me sad all day today. It's really bothered me. He was a legend, as you said. He's incredible. But to get back to this, I'm sorry. It's just in the horror movie, it seems justified, right? You like
Yeah.
something like Saw. The guy is taking revenge, sort of. I'm not a big Saw fan, so sorry, guys, if I haven't synced all the Saws. I'm not a big Saw fan. I like the first one's okay, but after that, they start dropping in quality to me immediately.
Yeah,
And
they
it's
do.
the same shit. But anyway, it's the whole revenge, like it's a vengeful thing, and it almost kind of makes sense. You justify it as a horror fan, but this is not. There's not a fucking thing that's justifiable of this.
No, there's not. And between 1972 and 1992, occurrences like this were regular, daily, every other day, weekly.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
During this time, the children were taken to accident and emergency at local hospitals 31 separate times, and not a single time was any injury
Makes no
reported
sense.
to social services. It was, oh, they've tripped and fallen, or oh, they've done this, or oh, they've done that. And the hospital went, yeah, okay, cool, we'll patch them up and send them home. 31 times.
Yeah, you have to know after even like 3 to 5 times, you're like, that kid's not that clumsy. I don't know. It's just hard to hit. I'm not, and this is the part of the case where no matter how much reading, I don't understand it. I don't, it's not sticking in my brain.
No, and that's not the worst that happened in Cromwell Street. So both Fred and Rose sexually assaulted their daughters, Heather and Anne-Marie being the main targets of the abuse. This was only after, Heather and May were the main targets after Anna-Marie ran away. So she ran away, and she was kind of the main focus of these attacks until she did. And then they switched to their younger daughters. Again, I don't want to go into this in too much detail. It's about the most horrific thing I can think of. But I also understand there's 90% of people who listen to a true crime podcast that you want to expand your knowledge of the case. And there is a portion of our audience in particular, I'm going to say about 10%, that like to hear Heather coach me through these horrible moments. We get lots of comments, and we get lots of messages when it's a really rough case, and you're there like, come on, you can get through.
I mean, you can. It's difficult though. Like even for me, and in a lot, this case is especially it's just so difficult because we're both parents and of younger children, and I have a toddler and a soon baby. So, and you just think about like, even when your kids get hurt, let's say you didn't inflict the pain on them, but when they fall down, they get hurt, you just feel like shit. You're like, God, you know what I mean? Like you don't want to see pain coming from your child, especially if you can prevent the pain. And I've had a day today. I told you about this earlier. Campbell is just he's been on one today, and it's just it gets stressful. Like I get it being stressful, but nowhere near in my mind am I going to hurt my child.
No.
It's so that's what makes this so hard to wrap our heads around, and for you to get through it.
Yeah, and with this, I've selected a couple of examples of things that they've done that will just give you an overall picture of these were regular occurrences. So at 8, Anna-Marie was led to the basement by Fred and Rose West. Rose tore her dress off of her and held her down while Fred raped her.
It's just gross.
It's awful. After it was over, Rose explained to her that that's just what dads do, and she better get used to it. She doesn't need to tell anyone, because everyone has that happen to them. They would also make her walk around in sexually provocative clothing, wearing sexual devices. And by age 13, she was being used as a prostitute to external clients. Now, whenever this happened, Rose would stay in the room during the
Mhm.
booking to make sure that she didn't reveal her actual age, because they lied and said she was 16.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
but I'm okay. But anyways, we're not going to get into that to throw you off track. But like, clearly, she looked like a child, and even
yeah,
16 is a fucking child. I get the
yeah,
age of consent, whatever. I don't care. I don't
yeah, I
care
agree.
in this case. It's just no.
Yeah, it's a
Ugh.
complete no. Whenever she resisted the sexual assault, she would be beaten and then raped as a way of keeping her compliant next time. After she ran away, the other girls would then be regularly raped and sexually abused. The
Mhm.
girls and brother Stephen come up with an idea to reduce the risk of one of the girls being raped. So he was younger than them, but he became almost like a kind of guardian, and the three of
Yeah,
them would go everywhere together. So
yeah,
if
to
one of them
protect them.
needed, yeah, if one of them needed the bathroom, that one would go to the bathroom, the other two would
Mhm.
go, and they would play outside the door to reduce the amount of time that they could ever be caught alone.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Stephen was also subjected to a threat of sexual abuse. He was told that when he turned 17, he would have to have sex with his mum
God
on his
damn.
birthday. Um,
With his mom?
yeah, yeah.
No.
Yeah, he that for his 17th birthday, he had to have sex with Rose.
Oh my god.
Um,
I don't know how I missed that, guys, but y'all are gonna see this video. What the actual fuck?
um, thankfully, Stephen was a disobedient child, and he got thrown out at 16, which means he avoided this happening to him. But that is what was planned before he was thrown out the year before.
My
But
ass would have got that is so disgusting that I almost want to be like, you know what, guys, have a nice day. We're done. And this does not happen. Scott knows. But these people, I know, I have so much to say. It's so vile that I cannot understand how a fucking mother can be
no,
like, that's so gross. It's not even like, it's not even a laughing matter at all. It's nothing. You can't make a joke about any of that shit. It's not
no,
funny.
no, it's
These
really
people are
not.
fucking, I'm glad. Ugh, this is over.
Heather West, your namesake Heather, um,
Yeah.
had a lot of traits that you share, which when I read it, I was like, that really is a Heather trait.
It's a Heather
She was
trait.
she was resilient, she was defiant, she was determined to escape,
Mm.
and it, she is part of the reason that things started to fall apart for
Yeah.
this little setup they had.
Yeah.
So when she started secondary school, she started to talk to her friends a lot more and open
Mhm.
up, and she started to give information about things that were happening at home. Teachers also noticed and things were not right. So when you
Yeah.
go to secondary school here, you do sports, and part of doing sports
Mhm.
is you have a locker room where you get changed and then you shower afterwards, and you that's
Mhm.
a communal thing. Um, Now she would always refuse. No, not getting changed with the other girls. I get changed afterwards or whatever. It was like, I'm not doing it
Yeah.
with the others there. This riled one of our teachers up, and our teacher made her. This revealed a body full of bruises and scars and marks.
Mhm.
She told the teacher it was through fighting with her siblings, and
Mm.
the teacher accepted that as a reason
I just
and
again,
just went, okay, I'll fine.
how how do you no,
Yeah,
I don't like again, I have every suspicious bone in my body. Let me tell you
yeah.
something. I'm pretty much not going to believe what you even say the first time, and I'm going to question it, and I'm going to need to be reassured, and I'm going to fact check it. I just don't get how you can just be like, okay, yeah, you fought with your brothers and sisters. Like,
I don't know if
it
this
makes no
isn't.
sense.
I don't know if it's a time error thing that the teacher's like, well, she's obviously had a beating at home. I don't want to get involved. I don't know if it was that kind of vibe, because in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, it was still okay to to hit your kids. That was still a thing in the UK. You could still give your kids a slap or give
Oh,
them.
it was okay here too. I mean, like, have you
Yeah.
not seen Carrie? I mean, you could
Yeah.
be a gym coach and slap them, which she fucking deserved that slap though. I'm just saying she did deserve to be slapped. Chris, whatever her name was. But besides that, yeah, it's not just a UK thing. It definitely is just a decade, a time thing
Yeah.
where parents were more abusive to their children, and us millennials now are like, well, we don't do that shit. And
No.
also, mother, father, you need fucking therapy because thank you for raising me like dog shit. Sometimes it be like that. It really be like that. Because we have trauma as older millennial people. We do.
Yeah, I'll give a prime example to anyone who's in a younger part of our audience bracket. What I'm going to tell you now is insane. So when I was at school, we had a maths
Mhm.
teacher, and if you
Mhm.
made any noise, he used to take the board. We had chalkboards. It was a big, heavy
Mm.
chalkboard rubber, and he used to spin around and he would bounce it on his desk in front of him and fire it off into the room as hard as he possibly could. There were
Mhm.
holes in the back wall of the classroom. And if that hit someone, he used to laugh. He didn't care who he got as long as he got someone. And that was
Yeah.
every maths lesson, that was a thing. And no one cared. Like I remember telling my mum that happened. And she went, yeah, as a teacher, teachers do that.
Yeah, and it's just that's nuts, right? Because when I
Yeah.
was in elementary school, so like elementary school is like when you're young, little school, and they had paddlings. So the principal was allowed to paddle if you were bad. Now they don't do that anymore, but
No.
isn't that insane? That what did you do to get
Yeah.
up? First of all, I will say, my mom would have came up to that school and blew that fucking school up.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I have a younger mother for my age in comparison. We're not
Yeah.
very far apart. But anyways, had someone paddled us, that wouldn't have been okay with her. So I can say that. But in general, the way that our parents raised us, it's nuts. It's wild because you're like, this is why we are the way that we are. And this is also why when we're in our 40s, we look good as fuck because we're preserved from all the shit that we ate. And now all you little 20-year-olds love y'all, but like y'all be looking older than us. So
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, we look good for our age.
I think so.
By the mid 80s, Heather had spoken up enough that people now knew that Rose was a prostitute, and they had
Uh-huh.
a good understanding that Fred and Rose were not the nice people they portrayed out into the world. Now, when Fred realized that information was starting to leak out, he made
Mhm.
it his job to walk Heather to school and pick her up every day to limit her interactions with people outside of the classroom. And that's an element of his controlling element.
Oh, yeah.
Heather left school in 1986, and she'd applied for a position in a holiday park, almost like a camp counselor type position in
Mhm.
a place called Torquay, which is on the south coast of England.
Mhm.
She didn't get that job, and she was devastated. And I've read several accounts of her siblings recalling her crying herself to sleep that night because she knew she was then stuck until she could
Yeah, that
find
was her
another way
way
out.
out. And yeah, it was her way out. Like I literally would have been like, "Oh, I got the position. I'm leaving." I'd
Yeah,
rather be homeless. I mean, like honestly, you think about that, you're like, "What's worse? Let me run away." I mean, obviously they didn't give a shit about like finding the children or doing anything. I know they did bring them back. I know that we discussed that. The kids would try to leave and they would bring them back, but like, I'm gonna
yeah.
run. Y'all ain't gonna find me.
Yeah, and I think I'm the same. The following day, most of the children went to school. There was one who stayed home, but we'll talk about that in a minute. When they got home, Heather was gone, and they were told that she got a call and she had got the job and she had gone down to Torquay to take the job. And this is the
Mhm.
story that they shared with all of their neighbours and anyone who asked where Heather had gone. Um, Fred would often joke with the other children if they were naughty that they need to be careful, otherwise they'd end up buried under the patio like Heather. they didn't
But he
know at the
wasn't
time.
joking. Yeah, I mean, he
He
wasn't
wasn't
fucking
joking.
joking. Isn't that? I just God,
It's awful.
dude.
What actually happened to Heather was Fred held her down and Rose stamped on her head until she
Yep.
died. This was witnessed by their youngest brother, Barry, who was 7 at the time. How
I
do
don't
you
even know. Like, you know what? How can I word this before we take a break? How can I word this? Her death was almost bittersweet in the sense of getting out of that environment. You almost would pick death over
Yeah.
that because I think at some point you feel like no one's going to help her. No one helped these children. No one did anything. And the mother was the one that actually killed her. Fred did assist, of course, but it was the mom. I can't even.
No. Should we take a break?
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
When you finish this episode, why not head over to yourunpodcast.com and check out some other shows? For some additional horror content, Podcast in the Woods is a great destination. Hosted by Gabby and Boomer, this horror movie review show boasts regular guests and honest opinions. Highly entertaining and at times hilariously funny, Podcast in the Woods is top-tier horror content. Or why not check in for some super nostalgic moments with Pop Culture Reflections podcast? This show is hosted by Justin and covers everything that has influenced pop culture in every decade. Films, music, TV shows, and professional wrestling all make regular appearances along with fabulous guests. This show is a must-listen. These and many other incredible shows all available at yourunpodcast.com. Your home of awesome entertainment.
We are the home of awesome entertainment, yourunpodcast.com. Go and check out all of the network members there. Also, while you're there, you can check out our shops. It's time for Heather to put her t-shirt on. There we go.
Oh, you always
Anyone-
wear one.
Yeah.
I'm still at that yellow shirt. I saw you click it off fast. Bitch, I still want that shirt. Look at my
Like-
shirt today. It says MILF and cookies. So naughty. I had to get it. It's funny.
Yeah, I like it. I'm
We're
wearing it.
entertainment. Okay, guys. If you want the link, DM me. I'll tell you where to get this shirt. If you're a mom. If you're not a mom, get out of here.
Yeah, and if you're a middle-aged man with a bit of a dad bod, I can tell you where to get this snazzy
Deal.
warm jumper
Deal.
I'm wearing.
You'd be a deal.
Oh my god!
Tell
Go and
Lisa that. Please tell her that. Please.
go, go and check out the network, yourunpodcast.com. Loads of
Yes.
shows there, loads of cool shows, loads of cool people. Go and hit
Yes.
them all up. This case is just a laundry list of failings by every single person that ever came near this family, from police to social services to school teachers to neighbors to random fucking strangers who knew what was going on. Like,
Nuts.
there was so much evidence that what was happening, and no one done a fucking thing.
Nobody did anything. They didn't even try to call. No, they were just like, oh no, that's fine. She has 74,000 bruises on her body. But who plays with their siblings? Like, okay, who plays with their siblings that hardcore? I understand you might roughhouse with your sibling. I never did. I'm the oldest and I have a sister and brother, but I did not play with them like that. That's not what we did. But I also understand you're a guy, a man. If you had a brother, you'd rough. But no,
Yeah, well-
I don't know any families that roughhouse like that.
No,
Is that
got
normal?
not to that extent. I mean, we've got 2 older boys. They're both nearly 18. They're
Yeah.
18 this month and next month. Now, when they were like
Yes.
12, 13, 14, they were fans of professional wrestling. They would be
Okay.
power bombing the shit out of each other onto sofas.
I mean, if
But-
it's in a playful thing, but they weren't like vindictively hurting.
No, and like you get the thing with like all
Okay.
kids where they sit next to each other and they'll like give each other a dead leg,
Pinch.
like that sort of stuff. Yeah, like that sort
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, they're not leaving big welt marks and bruises and scars on each other. That's not a thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's not normal.
Now there was one chance that the police had. They did intervene and they fucked that up as well. So in 1972, Fred and Rose employed a nanny called Caroline Owens. She was 17.
Mhm.
Now, they employed her with the sole goal to basically have her for sexual gratification.
Gross.
And when they tried to come on to her, she was like, "You two can get fucked." And she
I
quit her
mean,
job. Yeah, I
fucking
get it.
yuck
Yeah,
city. Like,
yeah.
no. Anyway.
Yeah, and she basically said, "No, fuck you two. That's not happening. You're not touching me.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in going anywhere near anything either of you have got." And she left. Now, they knew she would regularly hitchhike. So where she lived into town, she would hitchhike on a road backwards and forwards every single day. So they come up with a plan. They were going to kidnap her, rape her, take her home, keep her as a sex slave for a while, and then kill her. Now, what they done is they pulled over when she was hitchhiking, and
Yeah.
they used pretense that they wanted to apologize. They offered to give her a lift home and said, "Look, we're really sorry. Obviously, it came off wrong. Get in. We'll give you a lift home. We're really, really sorry." And she agreed, and she got in the car. Now, Rose sat in the back saying that she wanted to have a girl chat. Now, on this trip back, Rose began trying to sexually assault her, and Caroline fought back. Good for her.
Yeah.
Fred then pulled the car over, spun around, and punched her in the face, knocking her unconscious. When she came to, she was restrained with duct tape and rope in Cromwell Street. She was then drugged, tortured, raped, and sexually assaulted,
Mhm.
including having her genitals whipped with a leather belt, and every time she
It's,
screamed, being smothered with a pillow by Rose.
Jesus Christ.
After the assault, the Wests explained to her that they'd like her to stay on as the nanny.
What the? God damn it. Okay.
Um,
Ish.
now, in a bid to save her own life, because she was very aware the dire situation she was in, she agreed. And she performed chores around the house. She hoovered up, she tidied up, she helped get the kids to bed and stayed the night. The next day, they'd done a trip to the laundrette, and she escaped. She got a chance where Rose turned her back, and she was gone.
Yeah.
When she got home, she told her mum. Her mum called the police. Fred and Rose were arrested, charged with assault, indecent assault, actual bodily harm, and rape. Now,
Mhm.
they were bailed, but they were tried for these crimes. And on the day of the hearing, Caroline decided she couldn't face reliving it.
I get that.
She didn't testify.
Yeah.
Now, because the prosecution were concerned that they would lose the conviction, they offered up a plea deal. So they threw out the rape charges and the sexual assault charges, and they dropped it to a lesser charge of indecent assault if they pleaded guilty. They
Mhm.
pleaded guilty, and they were fined £50 each, which is the equivalent of £600 today, and then allowed to walk.
Yeah, but
free.
that's not that whatever. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Just keep on. This is just
No,
this is
that-
the stupidest
like-
bullshit I've ever heard of in my life. So you do this to somebody and you're just like, hey, pay up a few dollars. Makes a lot of fucking sense that all they care about is money in that society.
Yeah, not only that though, this is the prosecution not wanting to lose their guilty conviction, because they get a guilty regardless of what the judge sentences. That's
Well,
a tick in
yeah,
their box.
it's
We won. Like, the prosecutor from that walks away and went, "We won that case. It was guilty." But they didn't win that case at all. That is the biggest
No.
failing that we've ever seen on this show. That is the biggest miscarriage of justice ever. And it's disgusting. And honestly, when I read about it, I was like, "Fuck you! How is a £50 fine acceptable for kidnap, assault, rape? Like, the plan to kill? How is that a £50 fine?"
It almost
What-
seems not real, you guys. This almost seems like we're making this up
I wish I
because
was.
it's so insane. No, I know, right? But it's so insane that they serve no jail time. They
None
just
at all.
got a fine for
Yeah.
like you could have killed her. So what were you gonna get? Was it 100 pound if you killed her? Like I'm not making a joke of it. It's just
No,
literally
but
repulsive and stupid.
yeah, and it blows my mind.
Yeah.
During the late 80s, Fred and Rose would use various stories about where Heather had gone and what she was up to.
Hmm.
And this actually raised some concern with enough people that police began a missing persons investigation into Heather.
Oh, you mean they did their job? They did
Yeah,
something?
yeah, only took them like 5 years to do something.
Good
Um,
God.
Now, this coupled with their daughter in 1992 sharing a horrific story with a friend's mum, um,
Mhm.
led the investigation to one of the most horrific discoveries in British crime, no, in fact, crime history.
Yeah.
So, Louise, who was 13, was raped by Fred.
Mhm.
And she went and told Rose that Fred had raped her. And Rose said, "You were obviously asking for it."
I mean,
That's
I hate
mental.
her.
I,
It's
I
just
hate her. But
it's more than mental. Okay, like you're not even a fucking person. I don't know why you were ever on this earth.
no.
It's
Um,
disgusting.
so after she didn't get any sort of comfort or help or
Yeah.
protection from her mum, she told a friend. And that friend told her dad, who called the police immediately.
Hmm.
The police searched the house. They found over 100 pornographic tapes, some homemade, some sort of commercially bought porn. Um, Louise had told the police that Fred had videotaped one of the rapes, and that's the tape they
Yeah.
were looking for, but they couldn't find
Hmm.
it. That didn't stop them though, because they're in now. They've gotten in. They're in the house. They interviewed all the children, and in less than 24 hours, all of the children were removed from the home and placed in foster care, which
Yeah.
should have happened 15 years prior to this event.
Yeah. You can't even be like, oh, a victory is a victory because it's not a victory in this case.
No, it's really
They
not.
still lost their lives. Their children that we're fixing to find out that lost their life.
Yeah. The subsequent investigation went on for 2 years. So the Wests weren't in prison; they were still at home at this time, and they were given a warrant to search the garden after talking to the
Hmm.
children that are now in foster care, that are now a lot more comfortable with telling you what actually happened. They got a warrant to go dig up the back garden. The
Hmm.
morning the warrant was executed, Fred admitted to killing Heather. And said that she was buried under the patio. He admitted to manslaughter, saying it was done in a fit of rage. They had an argument and he strangled her.
Okay, well, he's not the fucking like he can't decide that it's manslaughter. You don't kill someone and say, I think it's manslaughter. Like that's
Yeah,
not how that works.
no, it's really not.
Fucking
Um,
cuckoo.
Over the coming days, weeks, and months, 12 bodies were recovered from the garden, the basement, and other locations across the area. Anne
Yeah.
McFall, Catherine Costello, Charmaine West, Linda Goth, Carol Ann Cooper, Lucy Partington, Theresa Seigenhather, Shirley Hubbard, Julianne Mott, Shirley Ann Robinson, Alison Chambers, and Heather West. These
It'll
were
make
all
no
of,
sense how they gonna bury all these people.
no.
Ain't nobody seen nothing. Y'all ain't seen nothing.
Yeah, like I'll be honest, I can't like I live in the same sort of setup of housing that they are. Like there's
Yes.
houses
Yes.
either side. I can't
Yes.
go in my garden and light my barbecue without a neighbor coming out and going, "Hi,
They like
how are
this.
you?"
Yeah,
Exactly
exactly.
that.
I don't understand. Like, were their neighbors deaf and blind? That's the only thing that makes sense.
It does, like literally. If I go in my garden, like during the day, if I'm on the phone at work, like I work in the conservatory area by my back garden. If I get
Yeah.
up and go for a walk in the garden because it's sunny, I guarantee one of my neighbors will either spot me through a window or come out in the garden to have a chat. Like that's
Girl,
just
that you know that's true because the people nosy as fuck these days. That's me. If I live by you, be like, what you doing? What you up there doing? But
why
no,
are
I
you in
get
your
it.
garden?
Like Yeah, I don't have a garden. I wish I did. Also, sunny days in the UK. You better document that. I don't believe it. Send a pic or it didn't happen.
um, I think the thing that I find most distressing is all of their victims were women. They were aged
Women
between
and young.
between 8 and 26. Most
Yeah.
of them were runaways. Some of them were
Hmm.
hitchhikers. Like, they were the most vulnerable of vulnerable girls,
Yeah.
and these monsters took them into their home, and the things they done to them were just unspeakable. These horrific acts, and then at the end of that, they died with the knowledge that they knew they would never coming out of this scenario. And that haunts me, that there's a young
And
girl
it's
in
just,
there who's 16,
mhm.
17, and she knows what she's just been through, and she knows what's
Yeah.
next, and she knows no one can save her.
It's just sad that but they purposefully preyed on the vulnerable
Yeah,
because people like that type of abuse, they're a bunch of pussies. Honestly, it's like you're not a fucking tough guy or tough girl, woman, whatever. They preyed on victims that they knew they could control over, that they
yeah,
knew that they for sure could demolish everything about them, even their own children.
yeah. Um, by the end of February, we knew who most of the victims were.
Hmm.
Remains were found up until June, but Fred started sharing more information with police that helped them find additional bodies. Rose was yet to be arrested at this point. So both her and Fred said that Rose wasn't involved and Rose knew nothing. Now, thankfully, the police knew that they were 100% full of shit, that they just
Yeah.
needed enough evidence. So there was a separate charge that came for Rose. So a young girl of 11 accused Rose of sexually assaulting her, and the
Hmm.
police arrested her for that. And then during the interview process, they led the conversation to Cromwell Street and to Fred. And Rose, like most serial killers and vindictive people, when they get in a room and they're under pressure, they fuck up. And she gave away too much,
Yeah.
enough that they could categorically charge her and Fred along with 5 murders. Like, they got charged with that. In the lead up to the trial, Fred hung himself.
Good.
Now,
Bye.
yeah, I
Bye.
agree. Now, I always thought Fred hung himself because he knew what he faced. That was always my understanding, but it
I don't
wasn't.
feel that, but
No, see, I'd done a lot of digging, and it turns out that the reason that Fred hung himself was Rose basically buried Fred in the press after she was arrested. She's like, "Don't want anything to do with him. It was nothing to do with me. I can't believe
yep,
he's done this." And then she
yep,
never replied to any of his letters. And he killed himself because he missed Rose, which I
right.
find weird.
Get out of here. How can I put my opinion on that? Not my opinion, but something. It's hard to say that for some reason he was so enamored with Rose
She was one of his
that
victims,
no,
effectively.
exactly. She started out as one of his victims, but then became his like his
Uh,
best pal wife and his what am I work come I can't even
a
think of the
cou-
fucking
a, a,
word.
Okay. The thing is, I don't know if
It's,
at this point if
uh-uh.
Fred was in charge or if Rose was in charge, because I get very much a distinct feeling that Rose run this later on.
I think Rose had more of the say so over kind of initially what happened.
Yeah,
And he's the man, he's the fist of it all, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And it would make sense that she would throw him under the bus because it was like, that's what type of narcissistic, crazy sociopath fucking piece of shit she was or still is. But
yeah.
it would make sense that she would do that. And also, like, I don't ever like suicide is fucking awful. It's awful. But he did us a favor and I said what I said.
Yeah,
Why
Yeah.
let him live on this earth any longer? And he did it to his fucking self over that old geezer. Like, girl, get out of here.
Yeah. Rose was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
She should have died too.
I agree. She's still in prison now and still claims her
No, I know.
innocence.
And she's still alive, guys.
Yeah.
She's still alive. So she still gets to live, prison or not, but like you still have your life.
Yeah, it's wrong. Now, in cases like this, we found this before. There's normally twists and turns along the way. This case has a twist that is particularly dark, which kind of tracks for everything we've spoken about for the last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
So, when Fred was arrested, Fred confessed to the murder of 30 women between 1972 and 1992. Now, he disclosed locations of 12 of his and Rose's victims in the early stages of the investigation, but he held on to additional information, and it was rumored that he was going to use that later to try and plea out a bit of a better deal, or maybe get Rose sent for more time or whatever. That was his plan.
Yeah.
On his death, he took the locations and the names of these people to his grave. And it's widely believed somewhere in that area there are another 18 bodies hidden that were
That's
the
fucked up,
victims to
man.
their crimes. It's like that. I can't fathom that. And I looked into lots of other cases that happened around the time. Lots of people who are potentially linked to this, and
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
got a good solid idea like who some of these girls would have been, and the families that never got closure because these bodies were never found, I think is awful.
The thing is that Fred taking his life was a big fuck you to everyone. A fuck you
Yeah.
to Rose. A fuck you to the families, the victims. It was just a big fuck you because it was like,
Yeah.
ha ha ha, who gets the last word? Technically, he does because he killed himself with secrets, and we don't know if there were 18 more bought. That's the thing. You won't know. Maybe one day will it ever come out? One day, possibly. But I guarantee you that with the crisis of our world as is, that's probably not going to be something that's going to ever be really looked upon any further. I would say.
The worst bit of this is Rose knows. Rose
no,
is
she
sat
does
in-
know.
and the fact she still protests her innocence all these years later infuriates me. You're in prison for life, forever. You're going to
You're
die
not
in
getting
prison.
out. Just fucking tell everybody what you did.
Yeah.
Like, we know there's lots of details that we're not going to get, and she will die with those, just like Fred died with those secrets. Because that's the type of sociopath you're dealing with. She's going to claim innocent because why they don't ever take any accountability for what they do bad. That's what a sociopath does. That's the whole point. And they have no feelings or remorse. A true sociopath does not feel anything. She doesn't feel bad about any of this. You think she mourns her daughters that she killed?
No.
Nope. She's just, look,
No.
she gets to be in prison. I don't know what prison she's in. I didn't even look at that part, to be honest with you. You guys, I'm like, I don't give a fuck about her. I'm done talking about her old raggedy ass. They're done. The end.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, this case was rough as shit. Like, this is one of the hardest cases we've covered.
Yeah.
I think what I find really hard is with every case we cover, I can always tie some reasoning to something. I don't justify it, but I can understand the motives behind it. And there's just no reasoning. Like you said, when we first started doing true crime, you said some people are born evil. And this is before we'd released a single episode. And I remember saying to you, fuck off. No, they're not.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, fuck you too then.
Yeah.
But you're on my coattail, you know.
Oh, you are 100% right. Because these two were a lot.
They're a prime example.
Yeah, some of it was caused by circumstance in their upbringing, but
Exactly.
they were evil at the purest form of that word. They are absolute monsters.
They're just monsters. You know, that 100%, they are definitely monsters. There's not much more you can get. Like, what else can you say?
Yeah, there is nothing else to say. There is a lot that we didn't cover in this case. So there's 12 victims, and we only covered some of them.
Mhm.
If you want to go and find out more, you can. But I didn't think it was beneficial to you, and definitely wasn't beneficial for me to
It's
talk
not.
through what happened to all of these girls. It's horrific what happened. If you want all the individual details, you can go and find that really easy. But I wanted to give you more of an overview of how horrible these people
Yeah.
were, as opposed to going through and going, they done this and they done that. Because fuck these guys. I don't want to talk about them. They don't deserve for me to discuss the horrible things they've done. I've given enough. We've
No.
given enough. Is there anything else you want to talk about these two people before we close this case, walk away from it, and never ever look back and go on to
They
something?
can burn in hell. Burn in hell. Happy holidays. No,
Yeah.
like, honestly, no, there's not, because again, like just to piggyback off of what you just said, you can do your own research, guys. We do try to give you as much information about these cases, and obviously there's so much that goes into these cases that we would not be able to do it in even a couple of episodes most of the time. So we like to label ourselves as we're more of a cut and dry podcast of getting to the point, getting to the meat and the meat of the situation. Yes, there are all these other small details, but honestly, you probably don't want to read about them, just because, like, once you know, you're listening and you know what Fred and Rosemary did to these women in these girls. It's I'm not saying it to be insensitive, but it's literally, that's what they did to all of them. All the other
Yeah.
additional victims that we may have not listed, you're regurgitating. They had an MO, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
Sexual assault. They were very, very, very much sexual sadists. So they got off on the fact of hurting someone. And that's all you really need to know, because if you read into it, you're going to get that same stuff regurgitated to you on most articles that you come across. It's going to say the same thing. So we try to save you guys the time, is what I say. We try to save you guys the time to say, oh, well, they summed it up pretty well. I don't really need to go dig into it anymore, because there's not, I mean, you're just going to read more about more abuse.
Yeah. And
I don't want to do that. That's not true crime fun for me.
No.
That's,
And if
no.
and if you're anything like me and you're a little bit sensitive to true crime, cases like this are hard.
Ugh.
Like I got through this because I spaced it well. Unlike when we done Toolbox Killers, and I went headfirst into it and just went.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This I knew what the Toolbox Killer's done to me. So with this, it was very much like, I'm going to do a bit. Okay, that's enough. I'm going to take like a couple of days break before I even look at anything again. And like when I put notes together for this episode, it's like, there's 3 paragraphs. That's enough for today. We'll do some more next time. Like,
You're like that. You got to you need a breather, because it is a lot. And especially for you, even though we've been doing this for a while, you've become more desensitized, I think, to a degree.
yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't affect you still negatively. Like, I guess for me, I don't like talking about this particular case. And it's very rare. As you know, you won't hear me say that very often, because most of it is just, it doesn't affect me in that same way. It still sucks, and it's horrible details, but it doesn't affect me. But this one is you would have to have no soul if you didn't feel even the slightest bit of remorse for these people. And it's called empathy, guys. Look it up. Like, you don't have to know these people to feel. And I just can't imagine the pain and the torture. And being a mom, and you're a parent too, you're a dad, you know how it is. Like, I can't imagine inflicting that any type of pain. Even when I accidentally maybe raise my voice too much at my kids, which doesn't happen a lot, believe it or not. I'm pretty chill mom. It still makes me feel bad. Like, I don't want to have to get on to them.
Yeah, and we're the same in this house.
You
So
know?
it's very rare I'll raise my voice. And if I raise my voice, 9 times out of 10, like, my youngest children, if I raise my voice, like one of them will cry because they're like, "Fuck, what was that? Dad doesn't
I
do that."
know.
It's
I
like
know.
I've raised my voice with the elder boys where they're like, we had an incident not that long ago where one of them come home so drunk. They done what we done when we were younger. They went out, sat in a park, got steaming drunk, and come in, and then they were like
Oh,
falling
God.
around the kitchen. And I was trying to sort them out,
Because
and
they're
I lost.
stupid idiots. You got to hide it better.
Yeah, and I lost my temper. Will you fucking get up and get upstairs? This is like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a
Oh,
Saturday.
yeah. Yeah,
And like
no.
my two
Mm-mm.
youngest children were in the front room behind, and they like, oh, I was like, oh God, no, now I feel bad. And then I'm like, get up
You've
those stairs
upset
into your
them.
bed. Yeah, yeah, I don't get it. Like, I'm not a shouty person. I'm not an angry
I'm not
person.
particularly. I do have a tendency, the way I was raised. My mom was a yeller. She did yell at us a lot. And sometimes that leaks over too. I think as I've gotten older and being an older parent now, I've gotten much more controlled with it. But being a younger parent, it was tougher to not yell. But I say I yelled. I never cussed out my child. That's not what kind of yelling I mean. I just mean raising my voice and maybe kind of getting a little too upset over something menial. But a lot of
Yeah.
that comes from if they spilled something.
Yeah.
My mom would freak out.
Yeah,
And
my
I had
parents
to
would as well.
retrain my brain. Well, I had to, but that's what I'm talking about, that generational trauma that I will not allow to inflict on my children now because it's not fair to them. They're kids, they fuck up, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to spill shit. I have a toddler. That boy makes so much fucking mess when he eats. So it's just like, but again, it comes from the way we were raised, and it makes it a little more difficult that you have to break that curse, basically. You have to say, I'm not going to get upset because they spilled milk or they spilled whatever they spilled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can clean it the fuck up and shut up and get over it. We're adults. We have to regulate our emotions so that our children learn how to regulate theirs because, as you know, having younger children, when they were much younger, they can't regulate. They're going to fucking cry and you don't even know why. And you're like,
yeah,
why are you crying? They don't know. They
Yeah.
too. But anyways, this isn't a parenting podcast, but it does flow into our case. No, I mean it goes with the case.
Maybe we need a parenting podcast. I reckon we'd do that really well.
Hey, we'll do one for the new the millennial parenting podcast, and it's like getting over your generational curses with Heather and Scott. I'm just saying, it's hard work, y'all. It's hard work.
First 12 episodes about parenting in the 80s and 90s, and then we'll move into how we now do it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're on that whole like gentle parenting thing, but we do have some spice. Like say I like gentle parent with a little kick of pepper in there every little bit, right? Because I'm like, don't lie, don't fuck around, don't piss me off kind of thing. But I would never, I do not call my children names. I don't berate them or belittle them. We don't talk about things like, oh, you made A's and you didn't make an A. You're smart. No, we do not fucking do that because I have a no bullying. I bully my husband, but that's a little different. He got me pregnant. But I don't bully my children like that. Like, it's okay.
No.
If you make a D, you made a D. You still smart? I don't give a fuck. So what? I made D's. Like, people make bad grades. But long story short, we parent with a lot more affection and love than I believe I was parented with.
Yeah. Yeah,
I know for sure. We're an affectionate household. We hug, we kiss. I have a toddler who likes to have his little weird kissy sessions with me. I'm like, boy, get off me. Get off me.
And
you know,
yeah, that's normal. That is that's a normal household. And like,
I think so.
And this case is as far away from that as you could possibly get.
That's what I'm saying. We're just trying to bring a little sunshine on a cloudy day. And it's just, you know, at the end of the day, if it's hard, and I always say this, if you find it hard to parent and it's tough on you, it's only tough for good parents, is what I say. When it's real hard, it's because you're a really good parent and you're trying your best. And kind of my little PSA, I guess, is like, don't be too hard on yourself. And it's okay you will lose your shit sometimes. You might raise your voice. Nothing is unrepairable in that aspect. You know, the best thing that you can do is if you raise your voice or you kind of get a little more mad, take a deep breath, think about it. Always apologize to your child. Even if they're too young, apologize. Because I think that builds that level of trust, right? So you messed up and then they see that, it helps them regulate to say, okay, well, mom or dad messed up, but it's not my fault. That's my PSA. Yeah. It's hard enough to be a fucking parent as it is. We don't want to fuck our children up. I don't. That's my goal. No. Like y'all just be somewhat normal. That's all I need. Don't kill anybody.
Yeah. Don't become a serial killer.
I don't care if you make D's, right? Yeah. Just don't be a piece of shit. Don't grow up and be that person. Please don't have a crock pot full of penises. Jesus, please no.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect place for us to say goodbye.
Wait, it's a holiday recipe, old Dahmer's recipe. You didn't know about it?
Cock a van.
I might make something in my crock pot soon. Not penises. I swear to God, I don't even know enough. I wouldn't even be able to fill it up. I don't even one penis. I don't know. Okay, right. Guys. Anyway,
take us away.
I've had enough of that.
Get us out of here.
Okay, guys. As always, I hope you've enjoyed listening to part 2 of this. Also, go listen to part 1. Because I think if you can get through part 1, you'll definitely get through part 2. Because I think we did an amazing job at being ridiculously insane. Because that's what we do here at the You Run podcast. But you guys, as always, again, thank you for listening. And stay safe, stay spooky. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Heather's raging. Old news, she screams. The newer word chases are all that she dreams. We dive into cases both weird and grim, from Zodiac ciphers to Tiger King's whim. Where You Run podcast, the oddball pair. We're pretty damn good to be fair. You Run podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manson's madness to Tupac's case. We're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a wink and a nod. You Run podcast, approved by God. Probably not. Scott's like, can we talk about movies? Heather's yelling, no, it's time to do this. We're trapped in a world of murder and gore, but hey, at least we've got podcast galore. Tupac's killers are chilling affair, but we're adding our humor to ease up. You Run podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From Manson's madness to Tupac's case. We're serving up crime with a comical grace. We're digging up dirt with a wink and a nod. You Run podcast, approved by God. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Probably not. Scott's like, can we talk about movies? Heather's yelling, no, it's time to do this. We're trapped in a world of murder and gore, but hey, at least we've got podcast galore. Tupac's killers are chilling affair, but we're adding our humor to ease up. You Run podcast, do true crime. Heather's ranting, Scott's in denial. From